Happy Ekadashi, everybody. Hare Krishna, Preeti Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Lakshmi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharajas, and all glories to the assembled devotees. This is Tiffany in Pennsylvania, and happy Ekadashi to everyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Tiffany Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. Happy Ekadashi, Sriya Prema. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Lakshmi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Vinita Gandharvika Devidasi from Texas. Happy Ekadasi to everyone. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Shri Guru and Gauranga and all the assembled devotees. Yashamati from Chicago. Happy Ekadashi to all dear devotees. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Yashomati Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to all the assembled devotees. Happy Ekadasi Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Sushmita Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Lakshmi Mataji. My Dandavat Pranam to you and to all assembled devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to my Gurudev, Dr. Keshavanand Prabhuji, and Guru and Gauranga, of course. This is Pooja Arora from Haridwar, Mataji. Ekadashi is in India, will be tomorrow. So, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Puja Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Lakshmi Mataji, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharajas. My humble obeisances to you and all the devotees. This is Krishna Kumari Devidasi from Raleigh.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Kumari Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Lakshmi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. This is Sukakar Krishnadas from Chennai. All glories to Prabhupada, all glories to all Guru Maharaj, all glories to all the devotees of the Bhakti Sangha. Today I want a special request. Today is my birthday. I'm 64 years old. I want all your blessings because you're all so wonderful Vaishnavas. I seek your mercy and blessings. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Sukhakar Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Prabhuji, and then wish you a very happy Krishna conscious birthday. Thank you for being part of this Bhakti Sangha group. Please continue to join. Hare Krishna.
Happy birthday, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji.
Happy
Thank you
birthday,
very much.
Prabhuji. Happy birthday, Prabhuji.
Thank you to everyone.
Krishna
I want to go
conscious
back.
Happy
birthday,
Krishna
Prabhuji.
conscious birthday, Prabhuji. Hare
I
Krishna.
want all of us. I want all of us to go
Yeah.
back to Krishna.
Krishna
I
conscious
want to go back.
Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare
Thank you very much.
Krishna,
You're all
happy Krishna
such
conscious birthday,
wonderful God
Prabhuji.
sisters.
Hare
Thank you very
Krishna.
much. Thank you very much. So
Hare
nice, so wonderful. I am praying all of us should go back home in this life. No more coming back. One way ticket to go look Vrindavan, finish. That's the goal.
Thank you, Prabhu.
But
Hare Bol. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hare Bol.
Thank
Radhe
you.
Radhe.
Radhe
Wish you a
Radhe.
very
Raja,
happy
Raja.
birthday.
I'm
Radhe
so
Krishna
lucky
conscious
that
Prabhuji.
all of you are giving your blessing. I'm so happy. I'm thankful to Krishna and my Guru Maharaj, Japtak Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare
Thank you.
Krishna,
Thank you very
Lakshmi
much.
Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. This is Shama Guru
Hari Bol.
Devidasi.
Hare Krishna, Shamagari Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam to you and all Vaishnava. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki jai. Sukhakar, Ajit Sukhakar Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Happy Krishna
Dandavat Pranam,
conscious
Mataji.
birthday. May you never
Thank you.
get birth again.
Hari Bol. Thank you very much, Vrinda Gopika Mataji. Thanks for your wonderful blessings. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vrinda Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thanks for the cakes. Raj Prabhu sent the cakes, birthday cakes.
Do we have any more introductions before we start the class?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. I offer my obeisance to all the assembled devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhuji, have a Krishna conscious happy birthday. And I need your blessings, Prabhuji. I'm not
Thank you
able
very
to
much.
give you blessings.
No, you are all
I need your
great.
blessings.
I am lower. I am lower than all of you. I'm Dasana. Thank you very much.
Prabhuji, I'm
Thank you
your
very much
servant.
for
I need your blessings, Prabhu.
Hare
Hare
Bol.
Krishna.
My prayers are always for everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank
We all
you.
need your blessing, Prabhu. Koti koti dandavat pranam. Hare Krishna.
Pranam to everybody. All of you are such great souls. You're all from Vaikunta Gold, Matajis and Prabhus. Thank you. પ્રહલાનંદ પ્રભુ આપકા આશીર્વાદ चाहिए મને જોવે છે આજે મારા બર્થડે છે તમારા આશીર્વાદ જોવે છે મહારાજ પ્રભુજી
Hari Bol Prabhuji, Hari Bol Prabhuji. You are such a great soul that, I always enjoy associating with you. And, as you said, we are all fortunate souls under the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. So I always pray for everyone that Srila Prabhupada showers his causeless mercy on all of us, on everyone actually. So you are so fortunate, and we are all in this satsanga, which is a great, great boat to take us out. Bhavab Dipotam, that's what he says.
And you are my Motu Bhai, I am your Nani Bhai.
Mota Bhai, Nana Bhai.
Mota Bhai, Nana Bhai.
Hari Bol, very good, very good. Thank you very much, everyone, Prabhuji, for allowing me to speak.
Darshan do ghan sham nath mori akhiya pyasi re. Darshan do ghan sham mandir man.
So you are a Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha, you are enjoying music of Bhagavan Krishna.
Yes.
Anyone who has little love for Lord Krishna, all his peace will shower on everyone else. So you are so good that way. Thank you very much.
Is Mataji on the call? Do you see?
Not yet, Mataji.
Okay.
Can I finish this song? I just started in 2 minutes.
Sure, very nice bhajan.
मंदिर मंदिर मूरत तेरे फिर भी ना देखो सूरत तेरे आ आ आ आ पानी पी कर प्यास बुझाऊं नैनन को कैसे समझाऊं अंधा देखे लंगड़ा चल कर दर्शनवासी रे दर्शन दो घनश्याम नाथ मोरी अखिया प्यासी रे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण Thank you very much. Sorry.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Malati Mataji. I'm so lucky
Happy
that on
birthday,
my birth,
Happy
Mataji, I
birthday.
need your blessings. You are Prabhupada disciple, so I seek your blessings. I want to catch your lotus feet and go back home with your blessings, Mataji. I seek your blessings. You are such a wonderful disciple of Prabhupada. Malati Mataji means you are a Vaikunta Mataji. That's all. Please, I seek your blessings.
You are very kind. Prabhupada has already blessed all of you.
Jai ho, Malati Mataji, Jai ho. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Lakshmi Mataji, please go ahead.
Singing, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Welcome to Bhakti Sangha conference call. We are extremely fortunate to have Mother Malati here with us today. And Mother Malati would be enlightening us by discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 1 and verse 65. But before we dive into this nectarine class, I will request Raj Prabhuji to share a brief introduction about Mother Malati. Hare Krishna, Raj Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Over to you.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Dandavat Pranam to you and all the assembled devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Shri Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna, Malati Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam to your lotus feet. There is a brief introduction for Mother Malati. Her Grace, Malati Prabhu is one of the eminent spiritual leaders of ISKCON and was initiated by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, in 1967. It was in the same year she and her husband, Shyamasundar Prabhu, helped Mukunda Das organize the Mantra Rock Dance held at Avalon Ballroom in San Francisco, which was a successful fundraiser event for setting up San Francisco Temple. In 1968, she, along with 5 close disciples sent by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, to London for establishing ISKCON's foothold in England. Eventually, she and her Prabhu Shyamasundar played a pivotal role in introducing George Harrison, Beatles singer, to the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. In early 60s, her services included shopping for temple activities, collecting donations for bulk produce, and cooking for the love feast. And all of them she did with utmost enthusiasm and sincerity. In mid-90s, she played a crucial role in efforts to ensure quality of women and helped from ISKCON's women ministry in 1997.
Excuse me, it's not women's ministry, it's Vaishnavi ministry. We are specifically interested in devotee ladies, Vaishnavis, not just women, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Malati Prabhu, for correcting us. We will update the introduction. Thank you so much for correcting. So for Vaishnavi ministry, as Prabhu said, she is presently one of the 32 GBC global secretaries, including overseeing the activities of ISKCON in Florida, Michigan, Kentucky, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and the new Vrindavan community in West Virginia. She's very soft-spoken and has an uncommon mix of humility and charisma, which she applies in her every breath to Krishna consciousness. Thank you so much. This is a very brief introduction for so many services that Malati Prabhu has given to ISKCON. Over to you, Lakshmi Mataji. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you so much, Raj Prabhuji, for that introduction.
Just a little correction. I am not, my GBC duties do not include West Virginia. In New Vrindavan, I'm based there, but I'm a private citizen, and my GBC service is Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, Michigan, and Western Pennsylvania. And Florida, it used to be, but I resigned in 2012. So,
thank you, Prabhu. We will update that too. Thank you so much. You are so kind for letting us know. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for that.
And another thing, you're saying that I went to the UK with 5 others, and actually there were 6 because my little baby, who was 6 weeks old at the time, she also came, and she's also a person. Of course, now she's 54 years old, but
she's one of the best devotees. Hari Bol. Thank you. Hari Bol.
Thank you for all those updates. Hare Krishna, Mother Malati, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for your valuable time and association this morning and enlightening us on the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam. Without further ado, I would like to request you to please take over from here. Hare
okay.
Krishna.
Now he said verse 65, but the message I got, and I can write on my WhatsApp, said verse 64. So, I mean, it doesn't matter so much, I guess, but what verse should I read?
Shyamagari Mataji.
$64, I think.
64?
I mean, that's what I was told was 64.
Yes, that was the verse I was told.
Yeah, Mother Malti, yeah. So
I
let's
think
continue with
64 is correct. I think 64 is correct.
I think your flyer has the wrong information. Yeah, Mother Malti, please continue with 64.
Okay, it doesn't matter, but I just want, I had something else. So thank you so much. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam in the 6th canto, 1st chapter, the text, just a second here, is text 64. And first I will say the word by word and translation. Tam, her, the prostitute, Eva, indeed, Tosyam, asa, he tried to please. Pitrina, he got from his father's hard labor. Artena, by the money. Yavata, as long as possible. Gramayi, material. Mana ramai, pleasing to her mind. Kamai, by presentations for sense enjoyment. Prasidata, she would be satisfied. Yata, so that, tata, in that way. Tameva toshayam masa pitre nartanaya vata gramayer manoramaya kamai prasidita yata tata. Translation. Thus Ajamil began spending whatever money he had inherited from his father to satisfy the prostitute with various material presentations so that she would remain pleased with him. He gave up all his Brahminical activities to satisfy the prostitute. Purport. There are many instances throughout the world in which even a purified person being attracted by a prostitute spends all the money he has inherited. Prostitute hunting is so abominable that the desire for sex with a prostitute can ruin one's character, destroy one's exalted position, and plunder all one's money. Therefore, illicit sex is strictly prohibited. One should be satisfied with his married wife, for even a slight deviation will create havoc. A Krishna-conscious Grihastha should always remember this. He should always be satisfied with one wife and be peaceful simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Otherwise, at any moment, he may fall down from his good position, as exemplified in the case of Ajamil. So, Om Agyan Tamarandasya Janana Sakalaya Chakchum Militam Yena Tasmi Sri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskacha Desatarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vansakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vaivyacha Patitanam Pavanevambhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So I thank all of you for inviting me to speak today. And I'm seeing we have some very senior Vaishnavas, very learned Vaishnavas present, so I should really be listening to you. So I will do my best. We've just, somebody should turn off their, so Sukara Krishna Das Prabhu, your fingers are like moving around and it's a little distracting, it's like, sorry, but it's like right in my face and seeing your lotus fingers moving around, and it's so kind of distracting. And I don't have a really good sense of concentration, to be honest. My mind is easily distracted. Thank you so much. So my god sister.
Sorry, Mataji. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Sure.
It's my weakness, but I mean, I have to just say, in general, when we're having these Zoom classes, sometimes people have their cameras on, but they're doing all kinds of things. They're not just sitting and listening. So, you know, and you see them moving around, doing this and that. It is really kind of distracting to the speaker.
No, actually, I was thanking everybody for blessing me. I was just putting a note. Sorry, I was not writing any personal things. Sorry, I was
Anyway,
just thanking.
it's quite all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
But just as a general thing, in general, you know. So my god sister, Anangamandri, related in a very nice memory that in Philadelphia in 1975 during the Rath Yatra festival, it was a 1 week festival. So during that festival week, Srila Prabhupada was giving lectures on Ajamil. And at one point, he explained how Ajamil may have or may not have been chanting Narayan consciously. He may have been thinking about his child, or he may have been thinking about Lord Narayan. He was not clear on that. And so he said, Ajamil was an accidental fall down. So later on in his room, a devotee asked Prabhupada, what did you mean, accidental fall down? So this is a good thing to understand. Prabhupada said, what is an accidental fall down? He says, it's when Maya has you at gunpoint. So if somebody has you at gunpoint, you have no choice. So the pushing of Maya will sometimes have us at gunpoint and we fall down. Prabhupada did not always fault a person for their weaknesses, as Krishna will still give you mercy if we keep trying. And so somebody else asked about Ajamil, if he was talking about Krishna when he cried for Narayan. And Prabhupada answered, it didn't matter. It doesn't matter. He chanted the name without offense, with innocence. So those are some mercy aspects of our philosophy. And if we don't have mercy with our philosophical understanding, then we can become kind of hard-hearted. We'll have a hard edge in our preaching, and we'll even miss out in our own lives by not giving compassion and love to others. So in most congested and polluted cities of the world, we are facing every day, we're facing challenges that threaten the core, and they blast our own morality as well as our spiritual peace. And most of us have children, our grandchildren, we have friends, we have loved ones who are facing these challenges, and we ourselves are likely facing these challenges. With what is taking on in the cities of the world, not only cities, in the villages, towns and villages, worldwide is threatening our civilization with uncontrolled sense gratification, with cruelty, immortality, and worst of all, is destroying faith in God. And on top of that, it's being packaged and labeled as so-called advancement of civilization. We understand from Bhagavad Gita that from the highest planet in this material world to the lowest planet, all are places of misery. Because wherever you go in this world, ultimately, we have to face death. We get reminded of this practically on a daily basis, and it's almost like, oh no, do I have to hear this again? But the fact is, repetition is necessary in order that something can be learned. Srila Prabhupada used to tell us that repetition is necessary. Otherwise we tend to minimize, oh, well, I'm still breathing, I'm okay. But sooner or later, we'll all face death, and that is the greatest of miseries in this world. In the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam, Sukadeva Goswami described those planets, that there are the types of planets that are mainly accepted by sinful living entities. So in the lower are the hellish planets. There is insurmountable suffering, and it's utterly unbearable for the human body. When we're given a hellish body, we suffer. but we suffer and we don't die. And that pain is the result of our sins, suffering for lifetimes, millions of years. So Maharaj Parikshit was inquiring from Sukadeva Goswami how almost everyone in this world is accustomed to committing sinful activities, knowingly or unknowingly. Now, I'm sure most of you are not committing sinful activities, but we're speaking here of the general population. So Maharaj Parikshit asked Sukadeva, please explain how one can atone from sinful activities and one no longer suffers. So Sukadeva Goswami was explaining that according to the Manusmriti, for every particular sinful activity, there's a particular type of atonement through fasting, through sacrifice, through pious activities, through giving and charity, different ways. And if you atone for all your sinful activities before you die, then you become clean from the sinful reactions. So Maharaj Parikshit was listening very carefully to this, but he was having a little doubt. And he said, Sukadeva Maharaj, it seems to me that even if one atones for all his sins, if the seed of desire for material atonement is still within the heart, that person will again commit sinful activities. But we know in many Western countries, people will go to certain churches on Sunday specifically to confess their sins to a priest. And by confessing their sins, giving some donation to the church, they satisfy the priest. And this way, they're said to be free from the sins. But the next day, they do the same thing again. So what is the use of such a life? Even as devotees, we have seen that devotees have taken vows. And even though we've taken those vows, by some quirk of fate, somehow or other, again fell into sinful activities. So Maharaj Parikshit is asking, what is the process by which one can relieve oneself from the seed of desire of sin within the heart? In other words, as long as that desire is there, even in the seedling form, the chances are practically 100% again will commit some type of sinful activity. So how can we just get rid of that desire? And Sukadeva Goswami replied, by always remembering the Supreme Lord, one becomes purified from within and without, by always remembering the Supreme Lord. And in the Garuda Purana, it's explained that Om Pavitra Pavitra Va Sarvat Sangatopi Smare Pundarikaksha, whether one is purified or not, or even having passed through all situations in life, one who remembers the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Pundarikaksham, whose eyes are like the lotus petals, becomes purified from sins from both within and without. That is the secret. And Sukadeva Goswami explains that by engaging in devotional activities, always chanting the name of the Lord with sincere intention, sincere attention, all inclinations for selfish enjoyment and sinful desires, they're cleansed from the heart. Lord Chaitanya has given us a beautiful slok. Chaita Darpanamarjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam Shaya Karavachandrika Vitaranam Vijavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipadam Purnamasri Swadvadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. So that the chanting of the name of Sri Krishna is the prime benediction upon all humanity, because it purifies the heart of all impurities. And when the heart is cleansed, all the sinful desires, then the soul is in a pure state. And then one has the qualities of the Supreme Lord: mercy, compassion, equanimity, peace, nobleness. One becomes a friend to all living beings. So these are the natural qualities of the soul. which is part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, Lord Krishna. And Sukadeva described that this is the truth by which one never has to face the consequence of sinful material reactions. And he explained that the great saints and sages, they tell a very ancient historical story in this regard. And that story is about Ajamil, the very gentle, learned son of a Brahmana. So you've been studying this for quite 64 slokas now. So you understand Ajamil was very well behaved. He was obedient to his parents, faithful to his guru. His senses appeared to be controlled. He was kind to everyone, pleasing, gentle in all matters. He was a religious mood. And then by chance one day, his father asked him to go collect some wood and some grass for the Brahminical sacrifices. And when he was coming back from the forest, imagine the forest, you go into a forest, you just expect to see some trees, some herbs, some flowers, maybe some fruits. So he'd gone to the forest. Generally, we're thinking like the forest is a nice innocent place. But what happened is he came across this fourth-class person, a drunken person, a man, who was engaging with a prostitute, and they were enjoying their senses to a very extreme, gross degree. So as they were merged in this situation of life, the prostitute's clothing were becoming loosened, her body was being displayed, and this Ajamil, he saw this prostitute enjoying sense gratification in this degraded, sinful way, and somehow the arrow of Cupid hit his heart. He became attracted, and he also wanted to enjoy this person. And then he remembered the instructions of his father. He remembered the instructions of the scriptures, and he remembered the instructions of his spiritual master. But it was very difficult for him to get this idea of enjoyment out of his mind. He went home, but still he couldn't forget the so-called beauty of that prostitute. It was kind of like a schizophrenia, yes, no, yes, no. It's just, I know this isn't good. I don't want it, but yes, I do. One time I was in Jaipur. So if any of you have been to Jaipur, you know that Radha Govinda is the heart of Jaipur. Shri Radha Govinda. And they're also actually my Istadev deities. So every once in a while, I feel compelled to go take their darshan. So I went one morning, and it's the best time to go. Mangalarti at Govinda's, people are running to get there. You don't see that anywhere else in the world, running to take their darshan. And I was fortunate to be quite close to the front. And next to me was a very beautiful young lady with a baby in her arms. And she was also eagerly waiting for this darshan. And as soon as the curtains open, it's just it's such an amazing experience. And everybody's eyes are just glued to the beautiful forms of Radha Govinda. And I moved aside so that lady could get in front of me a little bit because she was smaller than me. I didn't want to block her darshan. So then I was noticing she was looking at Radha Govinda, and then she would turn and look at her little baby, and then she'd turn and see deities, and she'd turn and see the baby. She couldn't figure out which was more beautiful. So that is kind of like how it is. There is Krishna, and there is something else to distract us. So that was Ajamil's problem. So he ultimately gave in to that distraction. He hired the prostitute as his maid servant, brought her into the house. I mean, what a pathetic situation. I have a very dear friend, a very close devotee from India, actually, living in America now. But her father was degraded in the same way, and he brought another woman into the house while the mother of his children were even there. He had 2 daughters. And they would drink and enjoy in the home. with the children and the mother, his legal wife. It was such a degraded situation. And that prostitute started acting like the home was hers. I mean, she wasn't an official prostitute, but by her behavior, she certainly was. And then the man, he became very ill. And as soon as he became very ill, he was no longer of any value or interest to this other woman. And so she left him. And this person had no interest in Krishna. He was always, his daughters became devotees. He was not interested, and he was against Krishna even. But now he was in a helpless condition. And so his devotee daughter was putting tilak on him, putting kunti mala on him. He couldn't do anything. He was so sick. Every day reading one chapter of Gita to him. And on the last chapter, after hearing the last chapter, he left his body. Even though he didn't even want any of this, Krishna gave it to him because of his devotee daughters. So just see how powerful the proper association is. So it's all due to association, and due to the influence of that association in the forest, Ajamil was enjoying his senses in the most degraded way, and he spent the duration of his life just to satisfy that prostitute so she would satisfy him, you know. And he became aged. When he was about 88 years old, he still couldn't give up enjoyment, sex enjoyment. And at that late age, he had another child. Now just see what an association with a low-class person can do to one's consciousness. But this is a really great lesson. I had a young friend, many like decades ago. So a young girl, and she was like a companion for elderly people, like people who were unable to go out. So they get lonely. So they get, you know, some kind of an agency will send somebody to go visit such an aged person. So this girl was quite young and she was quite beautiful. And one of the people that she had to visit was a former great naval officer. He was in charge of the most powerful, he had been in charge of the most powerful naval submarine, highly decorated. And now he was just stuck in a wheelchair with, you know, all kinds of tubes coming in, and a nurse was there 24/7. And once a week, this girl would go just sit and talk to him, you know, and he would just look at her like with so much lust. And sometimes he would take his finger and he would stroke her arm and he would say, so nice, so beautiful. And so degraded, such a big man, and has become like so degraded at the fag end of his life. He's just looking at a young girl with lust. Prabhupada told the same story. Anyways, the story of Ajamil took place a long time ago in a previous Yuga. And at that time, there was practically no such thing as a prostitute. There was hardly any person drinking. No one was openly engaging in sensual activities. And yet, somehow, by seeing such a person engaged in such an activity in the forest, and he wasn't looking for that, Ajamil's heart became contaminated, and the spirit for enjoyment overwhelmed his mind, and his mind became uncontrolled, and he took up that association. So nowadays, I mean, everywhere we go, practically everywhere we look, we see these incidents taking place. I mean, even in the temples, people don't know how to behave. Just a few weeks ago in New Vrindavan, I was in front of Lord Nrsingadev, and there was a couple, and they were embracing and caressing each other, and he was stroking her face right in front of the deity. I had to go up and say, please. And by the way, they were Indians. They weren't even Western. If it was Western, you might expect it. anyway, that's please, this is not appropriate behavior in the temple. So, can you please not do this? This is Kali Yuga, peer pressure, so much peer pressure. It invokes sinful activities. All your friends are doing it and they're practically forcing you. But Ajamil, he had no such peer pressure. No. Often, when people from India come, they're anxious to live in America, and they're attracted by the so-called glory and material prosperity, and then they get that prosperity, and then you find their children are getting ruined by indulging in certain activities that the prosperity brought about, and even the parents do it. I have been told, quite frankly, by persons who, especially the younger persons when they come, but persons of any age, I've been told frankly, but when we come to America, the first thing we do, we want to eat meat, we want to try meat, and then we want to try intoxications, and then we want to have liberal sex. I mean, frankly, just said that to me. I've heard so many heartbreaking stories over the years. One person was telling me, we're from a very, very pious Brahminical Gujarati family, and our 14-year-old daughter is pregnant. We don't know what to do. And another was saying, our son is 17, he's addicted to drugs. Another was telling how their kids are eating meat at McDonald's, and they're laughing at us, saying, we're out of touch, we're old-fashioned. It's heartbreaking. Young kids addicted to alcohol, drugs, and sex. But what do you see when you go outside? You see everywhere gross advertisements. You never see nice things on billboards and gigantic video screens. There's just so much violence. People are shooting each other, stabbing each other, having sex, eating gross food. And children are also exposed to these same things, the same influence that overwhelmed Ajamil. So we have to know the danger of sinful association and insulate ourselves and protect ourselves and our loved ones from the direct association of Kali Yuga and Kali Yuga's activities. Because it was due to that association, that moment's association, Kali became the lowest. Ajamil became the lowest of the low. Just a moment's association, practically speaking, he just fell. And in the same way, a moment's association with the pure devotee of the Lord can have the total opposite effect and bring one back to Krishna. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 2:40 that in this endeavor, there's no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. So any spiritual advancement you make, it's never lost. Because Ajamil was faithful to his guru, he was faithful to his parents, because he lived in devotion to God when he was young. The Lord in his heart never forgot that. I had an experience once with a person who was suffering dementia. And it was a god sister actually. And we were all thinking, oh, poor Adara, how sad. She wouldn't even recognize her own son. She said, no, you're not my son. My son was a beautiful little boy. You're a fat, ugly old man. And we're thinking, poor Adara. But one day, we're standing in front of the deities. I was standing with her in front of the deities in Columbus, Ohio. She's Radha Bar. And she used to sew for them. She used to sew for Radha Vrindavan Chandra. She was their principal seamstress. In fact, when she started to lose her sight, and she would sit at her sewing machine, and her sewing machine was in a room that had a window to the temple room. And now it's a gift shop, but at that time it was her sewing room. So she would sew looking at the deities. But when she could no longer sew, she just sat there looking at the deities as best she could with her failing eyesight, with tears falling out of her eyes. And she could not engage in her service like that anymore. So now she had this situation of this Alzheimer, And she's standing in front of Radhanath bar, and it was an outfit she had sewn for them. And suddenly she turned to me and she very clearly, and she points her finger to me. You may try to forget Krishna, but he will never forget you. And I was like feeling like a form of just like, I was almost trembling because I was thinking, my God, we're all thinking Puradara, but she's remembering Krishna. And she's reminding others to remember Krishna. And she's telling us, we can try to forget him, but he will never forget us. And that is the case. That is exactly the case. And Krishna's guaranteeing that. Krishna is saying in the Gita, I know past, present, and future. I know about everything and about everyone. So our responsibility when we have children is to raise them by our own example in God consciousness. And if we don't do that, then we're actually cheating our children out of the most precious gift that they're entitled to. And the same thing goes into marriage. Whether, sometimes it may be that one partner comes to Krishna consciousness or is interested in Krishna consciousness and the other one is not yet. Still, it's our duty to act in Krishna consciousness and by example, show the other what a wonderful thing Krishna consciousness is. This Guru Hana Sishya Sujanina Sasya, that according to Sastra, we don't have the right to become a parent or a spouse unless we are in God consciousness. So especially we want to train our children to be the same. Otherwise, we're just cheating them. We may give them a good liberal education, nice clothing, etc., etc. But if we don't give them Krishna consciousness, we're just teaching them how to be good materialistic persons. If we want to be a simple person, if we want to be a materialistic person, that's our business. But if we're going to take the responsibility of raising children or getting married, raising children, then our obligation is clear. And we must ensure that the child never has to take birth again and suffer in this world. One of my god sisters who's departed, Lavanga Latika, she was, she came to Krishna consciousness. She had a young child. And this young child also was taken to Krishna consciousness. And she was a big book distributor. She was like, nobody could practically outdo her distributing books. And one time she was asking Prabhupada, when she had the opportunity to meet him, what is my responsibility to my son? And Prabhupada said, your responsibility to your son is to make sure he never takes birth again. And Prabhupada loved her son. He named him Dwarkadish Das, and he would call him Mr. DDD. And he initiated him when he was 12 years old. He gave him first initiation and second initiation together. It was a very special son. But that is our responsibility, that it's not just to feed our kids, give them clothing, get them a nice degree, put them in high school or in college, make them doctors and lawyers, PhDs, and get them married, put them in a nice house. That's all secondary. Our primary duty is to set by our examples, by our teachings, to show the child the way of eternal life, free from all suffering and free from repetition of birth and death. And as husband and wife, it is the same thing. What is marriage for? It's not just for enjoyment. Of course, enjoyment's there. If there was no enjoyment, you wouldn't really want to stay married. But the enjoyment needs to be there on behalf of Krishna. That is the idea of Krishna conscious marriage enjoyment. Ajamil's parents gave him God consciousness when he was young. So, of course, in this day and age, where practically every child is a potential Ajamil, it's really important to train the child when he's young, to make a good foundation, just like when you build a temple. There's, different places in ISKCON, temples are being built. First thing is a good, strong foundation. So we give the child a good, strong foundation in Krishna consciousness. Because, you know, even later with a good foundation, there's going to be the influence of society, especially when the kids hit teen years. They're going to be vulnerable to going astray. But if they have a good foundation, even if they get a little distracted, eventually they'll remember and they'll return. So whatever spiritual discipline we have done in life, Krishna within our heart never forgets. When one tastes the sweetness of the lotus feet of Sri Hari, when one experiences the nectar of service to the Supreme Lord Krishna, then even if one does fall down due to bad association in materialistic life, or accidentally, it's just a matter of time till one comes back again to the service of the Lord. One cannot be content with material life after experiencing something higher. Can try, but it's just the taste will never be there. So the Lord is a controller within the heart of everyone. He knows the condition of everyone's life, and he's simply waiting for the opportunity to drag them back. So the Lord within Ajamil's heart inspired him to name his youngest son Narayana. He wasn't thinking specifically of the Supreme Lord, but the Lord inspired him. Name your son, name this boy Narayan. And death is creeping upon all of us. And in the form of time, our lifetime is being diminished from every second after every second. And yet we don't even recognize that it's happening to us. We think about it sometimes, especially like when you really get old like me and you look in the mirror, you're thinking, oh my God, any minute now, any second now. But we become engrossed in our plans and in our attachments. So this Ajamil, while he was lying on his deathbed, he became really bewildered because, you know, he had practiced as younger, he had that foundation, and then he spent the bulk of his life in total nonsense, sinful activities, and now he's on his deathbed. He gets on his deathbed and he becomes bewildered and fearful because he became faced with the servants of Yamaraj, the Yamadutas. And then from the corner of his eyes, he saw his little son playing in the corner of the room, and he understood he's about to be dragged away from his darling son. And he began to call out helplessly in complete desperation, Narayana, Narayana, Narayana. And due to that, the Vishnu Dutas arrived in the scene. Just, he wasn't even thinking of them. He was just calling Narayana. But the Vishnu Dutas came, and then there was a big struggle between the Vishnu Dutas and the Yamadutas, with the Vishnu Dutas coming out on top, becoming out supreme. And the Vishnu Dutas explained that because Ajamil chanted the name of Narayana in a desperate state of mind, he was chanting offenselessly. He wasn't chanting with a material ambition. He was simply crying out the name Narayana. And even though he was thinking about his son, the name of Narayana was so powerful that because he chanted this offenselessly in a desperate condition, the Vishnu Dutas responded. So, of course, we don't want to, like, you know, how the tendency is, okay, I'll think about Krishna later on. Right now, I've got so much to do, but, you know, it's not guaranteed that it's going to happen like that. So still, Krishna's there. He knows. One time a devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, what happens to a devotee who's been chanting all of his life, practically speaking, and performing service, but somehow or other, at the time of death, somehow he forgets Krishna, or he not forgets, but he can't chant, he can't remember Krishna, because, you know, death is quite disturbing to the body. So what happens? And Prabhupada said, do you think Krishna is an ungrateful person? So, no, Krishna's not going to forget what we've done, but we shouldn't act in such a way that, oh, I can do what I want now, because at the time of death, Krishna's going to remember I did a few little things for him. We shouldn't take that mindset. So not only does chanting purify one of all sins of this life, but also purifies one of sins in our previous lives. So therefore, this man, Ajamil, just by that utterance and desperation of Narayana, he was no more karma. And Ajamil was struck with wonder, and he offered his obeisances to these beautiful servants of Lord Vishnu, and then they disappeared. And he came to his senses and he began to think, what have I done with my life? What have I done? His heart was really beating fast. It was pounding with regret. And I was thinking, I completely neglected Lord Narayan. I disgraced him. I've brought utter disgrace to the Brahminical order of life due to association of low-class people. I'm so degraded. I'm the most degraded, sinful man on earth. But by the grace of Krishna, he allowed me to name my son Narayan. And by the grace of the celebrated personalities of Vishnu Dutas, I'm saved from the most horrible fate. So therefore, now, with all gratitude and praying for causeless mercy, he was, let me dedicate my life to the service of the Lord's servants. So then Ajamil went to the holy place of Hardwar on the bank of the Ganga, and he immersed his consciousness in Harinam Kirtan. And he was remembering Krishna in the court of his heart, and he was serving his devotees. And in this way, he really purified his life. And after becoming completely purified, again, he saw these same 4 beautiful personalities descending from Vaikuntha. And he gave up his body on the bank of the Ganga. He was transported back to the spiritual world. And Sukadev Goswami explained to Maharaj Parikshit that there's no greater religious principle than becoming the servant of the devotees of the Lord. And he explained that this narration of the Leela of Sri Ajamil is so instructive to all of us. He explains in Bhagavatam 6.1.65, O descendant of King Bharat, one who desires to be free from all the miseries must hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead. So hear, glorify, and remember the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, the controller and the savior from all miseries. This is the essence of all knowledge, and it's contained in that beautiful shloka. It's kind of like a jewel that's so precious that anyone who perceives the glory of this jewel within our hearts never has to suffer again. So the one can overcome all obstacles in material life and become established in our eternal glory just by hearing and chanting and remembering about the beautiful Lord of our life, Lord Krishna. And in the association of sadhus to glorify and remember and to hear the beautiful pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it becomes most relishable, most simple, most natural. It is the most natural thing for the soul. And when the soul is cleansed of all the dust covering it due to distractions and sinful activities, past or present, then there's no other important priority in our life than to seek the association of great souls. And in this material civilization, the tendency is so strong to become involved in relative responsibilities of survival. You know, I must do this, I must do that, and forget the real purpose of life and how to attain it. So we've just celebrated Sri Krishna Janmashtami and Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja, 2 most powerful holidays, not holidays in terms of like, you know, there's so many holidays, but most spiritual days is Janmashtami and Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja. So we can be very grateful and thankful to Krishna and Srila Prabhupada for providing us this path of true happiness and freedom, the path of bhakti, the devotion to Krishna. Krishna says, everybody knows this verse, it was one of the verses Prabhupada most quoted, this Man Manabhava Bhakto Madhyajinam Namaskaru Mami Vasyasi Satyam Te Patijani Priyoshi Me, was 934. Always think of me, become my devotee and worship me, offer your homage unto me. In this way, you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my friend. So it's a 100% guaranteed, unconditional promise of Krishna. If we become his devotees, if we remember him, if we chant his names, if we serve his devotees, that we'll come to him without fail. And if we're having some difficulty, he'll be there for us. It's actually up to us to make the right choice and carry it out with great determination and faith, enthusiasm and patience. So there's a verse, one of the, I can't remember which chapter it is in, but in the purport, Prabhupada is talking about deity worship. And he says that it's essential for the grihastas. I think most people hear grihastas. So it's essential that the grihasta worships the deity, because without worshiping the deities, one is sure to fall down. So this is another point that is important in the life of the grihasta, is deity worship. And it helps one, it gives one a very nice association, and ultimately is association that will guarantee us the proper association that will protect us and keep us from wandering astray in Krishna service. Hare Krishna. So if anybody has any
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
comment.
What a beautiful class. Thank you so much. Thank you. So much nectar.
Sorry for the background. I'm in a hotel, as you can probably notice. I have to travel. I have to leave shortly and go somewhere. So last night, the devotees arranged a hotel for me. So
that's okay. That's okay. Your Krishna Katha was so amazing, so beautiful, Prabhu. Actually, I loved the personal examples that you gave during the Katha. The incident of Jaipur, when you let some other devotee in front of you to see Shri Radha Madan Mohan, that is so beautiful. That's
not
when
Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Govinda.
Radha Govinda, sorry. I apologize. But that is the moment when Radha Govinda wants to see a devotee like you. That was so beautiful from you, because usually tendency is, we want to go ahead and we want to, that's so beautiful. I love that incident. And I appreciate you shared the incident of your friend whose father did such a abominable thing, bringing another woman home. So that's degrading. We see we are going ahead in Kali Yuga. That just tells us, Srimad Bhagavatam tells us. And you shared an incident about what happened in the temple from a couple that was very degraded. I completely agree. And it's just so sad seeing what a young couple is supposed to do in front of deities. Instead of watching their lotus feet, they are doing such a stupid thing.
But
So
the point is, it shows that we as devotees have a lot of work to do.
Haribol, sure, Prabhu.
Are not being properly instructed. It means we have to do our work with greater endeavor and enthusiasm. We didn't come devotees to be comfortable. Actually, we should be happily uncomfortable in the mission of preaching Krishna consciousness.
So true, Haribol, very true words. And certainly you explaining about the billboards which are pushing us right now to a degrading society. Actually, these days we can see some billboards which are helping us to take divorce and whatnot. So yeah, and then undo.com. So that's very, very degrading. Then I love the verse you said, Neha Bikrama Nashosti. Krishna says, in this endeavor there is no loss. There is no loss at all. And I love the episode of DDD, the Srila Prabhupada double initiated the 12 years.
And he would call him Mr. DDD.
Mr. DDD. Srila Prabhupada is ocean of mercy. So yeah, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And then I would like to share this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. It's all about what is happening right now in this Kali Yuga. Kaler dosh nidhe rajan asti he eko mahan guna kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangha param vrajit. It says this is ocean of faults, this Kali Yuga where we are living right now. The only best thing in Kali Yuga is chanting of Harinam. So that's what Srila Prabhupada gave us. So thank you so much, Prabhu, for such a beautiful class and so many examples and so many personal realizations you shared. I loved it. I loved it. And I loved the realization of your personal example of Jaipur temple. So that's so beautiful. So dear devotees, if anybody has any questions, any realizations, any reflections, please go ahead. Our senior devotee, His Grace Prahlad Anand Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Radhas Prabhu. And I'm so grateful you allow me to speak.
My head at your feet, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. I have read Prabhupada Lilamrut so many times, and I have read other Prabhupada, pastimes, and I always heard Mataji's name. Today is the first time I'm having her darshan. I'm so grateful, Mataji, for giving us such your intimate association with Srila Prabhupada and the services you have done for fallen souls like us. This is amazing. I just wanted to mention some of the things which you were saying, and about remembering as we are aging. I'm going to be over 69 next month, and
I will be 77 in a few days. So we're all like running up.
Yeah, so at the far end of our life, we all to just be services. Yesterday we distributed about 35 small books in a local temple here in Las Vegas. So we want to do some.
You're in Las Vegas?
Yes, Mataji. Yes, I'm here for
last Thursday. I was in Las Vegas, but I was in the airport changing planes.
Oh, I see.
And I was thinking,
next time you come, Mataji, I would like to touch your feet and invite for prasadam at my place.
But that Las Vegas is the epitome of a sinful life. My God, you walk out the plane and there is gambling machines everywhere.
Everywhere.
And I was because I left at such an early hour in the morning. I hadn't eaten anything, and I was trying to see, is there anything I can find to eat there? Finally, I found they had a juice bar. So I got some juice, fresh juice. Otherwise, my God, I couldn't even look at what they were trying to sell for.
I must have been a narky Jew. That's why Lord Krishna brought me to this city. But by great mercy of Srila Prabhupada, I've been able to stay here for the last 27 years or so.
Wow.
And we have been doing a lot of service in the cause of Srila Prabhupada's mission. And fortunately, some souls have come, and we do a lot of book distributions all over the city. So that's how we can be a little service.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji. I just wanted to quote some beautiful verses. Srila Prabhupada also loved. Krishna tvadiyapat pankaj panjarantam madvai mevistatum manasarajhans. So as we are, approaching, this fag end, I just wish that Lord Krishna would give us, this mercy of remembering him at the end of the life. Also about, the chance we forget Lord Krishna at the end of our life. Lord Krishna is so merciful that as Prabhupada says that he is not ungrateful. And, Vara Puran, he has already said, he says, Yadi vat atadi dosena, if somebody forgets me because of some bodily dysfunction, I myself will come and remind him. So what chances we have no chance.
And if he doesn't come, Prabhupada will grab you by your siga.
That is so true. And I am so confident that, little Neha Bikramana Aswasti and with Prabhupada's mercy, we'll all be able to go beyond this birth and death. There is no doubt about it. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you very much for allowing me to have this little chance to speak about.
I'm happy to meet you. And next time I fly through Las Vegas, I will take a pause and visit.
We always eat Krishna Prasadam, nothing else. And I like anyone who come to Las Vegas, please come. I'll feed you for whatever days you stay here with Krishna Prasadam. My wife is from Gujarat, and Srila Prabhupada used to like so much, Gujarati food. He used to praise so much.
I also like.
Really? We call it dal, bhat, roti, saag. Those 4 things were so beautiful like that. Srila Radha Govinda Goswami Maharaj, he came to my house in Africa when I was there. And he also came to my house when I was in the United States in New Jersey. Both at the time, he had the food and he appreciated so much that Gujarati food is so tasty. And because it's Bhagavan Krishna's mercy, we always prasadam like. So again, so much. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak so long. But Mataji, this is your satsang. Thank you very much. Touching your feet.
So I see in
you.
the question here there's one lady is asking, it's recently I took initiation and my partner forced me to consume onion and garlic food. If I refuse, he gives trouble for spiritual practice. What should I do? This is a very difficult situation because we're taking vows when we take initiation. At the same time, if there's forcing, what can we do? So it's too late now, but I would just make the advice that if you're in a situation where you're going to find it difficult to maintain the vows, you might want to think twice about taking initiation at that time and give a little bit more time to see if you might not be able to convince your partner to also join you in following, even if the person doesn't become fully Krishna conscious, but at least he becomes favorable and will not put obstructions. Because before getting initiated, you must have known already that this would be the situation. So we have to be very careful when we take vows. You can say, well, in one level it's accidental because onion and garlic, it's not the worst sin, but we take a vow, so we don't want to eat, and at the same time, if the person you're married to is forcing, you're almost obliged to accept just to keep some peace in the family. So it's a little too late here, but my advice is that before anyone who's considering initiation should very carefully consider the implications if their partner is not supportive. Just because the partner is not a devotee doesn't mean they won't be supportive. I know many such marriages and there's no issue, but I also know many where the partner is very forceful, and then the person is forced into activities that aren't compatible to Krishna consciousness. So we must be very careful when you take vows of initiation. That's my only advice I can say. Somebody else.
Thank you, Prabhu. Bhagwati Mataji, yes, please go ahead, Bhagwati Mataji. Bhagwati Mataji, you are on mute. Okay.
Yes, Prabhu, but if my husband is not interested in following a spiritual this way.
Yeah, I understand that. It's too late now to do, so you just do your best.
How long he will not come to?
And this is not the time for the discussion. I've given the answer. You just do your best as best you can. That's all you can do.
Thank you so much. Bhagwati Mataji will pray we all pray for you, and we pray to Krishna. That's the only way we have right now. Sugakara Prabhu, Hare Krishna, Dhanva Pranam, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Dhanva Pranam. Mine is muted. My video is muted.
We can hear you, Sugakara Prabhu.
My video is muted, video.
Okay, I'll give you the option. I will
Prabhuji, I'm trying to ask you to start your video, but it said that you will start later. I'll try again, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu, I tried from my side too. But you can speak, Prabhu. We can hear you very clearly.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Malati Prabhu. My question is only on, because you are from Srila Prabhupada, can you give some tips for just on the chanting? Because that is the only medicine which will help us to cross the Bhava Sagara. Everybody is chanting. Can you just give some tips for a better chanting? Something which will really help us to do better.
Well, every day we recite the 10 offenses. And in addition to the 10th offense, we say it is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting.
Yes.
That one point is a real stickler. Because I don't think, there's very rare persons who have actually developed a deep, deep taste to the point that when they pick up their bead bag, they immediately remember Krishna without distraction and without attention. So if we put some effort into being attentive while chanting, everything will follow place.
And for absorbed chanting, any tips? Because you're all so much senior devotees. I'm 64-year-old, you are 77, and so many years with Srila Prabhupada. So you may be having something, which you can share, that how we can make it absorbed chanting, and whether we can.
Well, the story, just like we were hearing about Ajamil and the prostitute, there's also the story of Haridas Thakur and the prostitute.
Yeah.
But it was quite a different story. So the prostitute came and was presenting herself. So what did he do? Did he become bewildered? No. Actually, she was propositioning him, and he actually told her, okay, I'll satisfy your desires, but just let me finish my chanting. In other words, we have to tell our mind is like that prostitute trying to get us away from chanting. So we just say, my dear mind, I'll come back to you, just let me chant this one round. Let me chant this one name, have to fight back a little bit.
Wonderful. So the mind is like a prostitute stopping us from, enthusiastically chant. So we have to keep telling, wait, I'll finish the round, then I'll come to you. Yeah. And then finish the day. Thank you. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
And again, seeking the blessing. Today is the birthday, and I want to chant better and do more devotional service. That's all.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Best wishes on your birthday.
You, at your lotus feet, Dandot pranams. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Sukhakara Prabhu. Thank you so much. Beautiful question. And thank you for the beautiful answer. We should say our mind. Just wait for one more Japamala and then we'll come back to you. What a beautiful answer. Thank you. Valli Mataji, Hare Krishna, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Very, very wonderful class. It makes everyone start think like what we are doing and what is our position in this place, and why we are having these problems and what is the remedies for the problems, all these things. And Mataji, when you shared about how to raise the kids, I loved that part a lot, because that is our responsibility to take care of the next generation, not only the education and the colleges and the good places to live, but going back to Godhead, that is more important, as you said. And one more story you have already explained, right, from Mataji, that is your own experience. Raj Prabhuji has explained most of them, but the point I liked is the lady with the Alzheimer's, right? She forgot everything, but she remembered Krishna, and she saw that from the window where she's showing the missions. And she said, right, that we may forget, but God will never forget us. So that made me very moving a lot, because I was thinking the same when I moved to US. Maybe that is a place like Las Vegas, as Prabhuji said, it is full of all these things. And if I can do my spiritual activities well or not, how will be the condition? So I'm all confused at that point of time. So, but I started praying, when with the mercy of God, maybe I could come to a place where it is more advanced than in India. Because my own brother, he went for a place for a visa stamping in India at his time of his marriage for his wife, but the place was closed for Janmashtami that day. The US consulate was closed. They didn't know, then they went for taking the stamping. But at that time, they were stunned, like, what is this Krishnashtami? Why did they close the US consulate? That is all because of Srila Prabhupada. That's what I can say. because we have so many festivals in India, like Ramanavami, Hanuman Jayanti, and Navaratris, and all these are going throughout every month, and we have so many festivals. And one of those festivals is Janmashtami. So it is like anything normal day for most of the people over there. And they didn't even realize that it is a Janmashtami, and they're busy going there, stamping and getting their paperwork done. But after coming to US, then I could know like how much of change Prabhupada has brought here, and everyone knows what is Krishna, and how they are celebrating for these 5 days, 10 days, and the month of Kartik for 30 days. A lot of difference, Mataji. So I was feeling so much blessed, because I was also thinking about that Mataji who is shared, like she is abstracted from doing the spiritual services. So just put deep faith in God and pray Lord Krishna only. So he will show a way, definitely. So that's my own experience. And even if it is, if anything is done for bad, that will give a good results, because that happened in my case, because I had a heart problem in 2012, and I went for a heart failure. 2014, I had an open heart surgery for valve repairs. At that time, someone said that you have to read this Rasa Panchadhyaya. Those are the 5 chapters that will keep your heart open, and you can get out of this problem. That was the time I was introduced to Krishna. I was moving everywhere to hear Bhagavatam. Who can read Bhagavatam for me? Where can I listen this to Panchadhyaya? What are those adhyayas? I was having no clue about this chapter at all. So that time I was introduced by a Mataji from ISKCON to the our center here in April. I went and listened to this Panchadhyaya regularly, like 5 days. I was sitting in front of Mataji and listening. It was so divine, Mataji. And after that, also in 2018, recently I got a heart transplant. But I feel those are not abstractions at all, because those sickness and illness and all the problems what I faced in my life for the 8 years, it is only I have to listen to the Bhagavatam regularly. That's what I feel, because if that had never happened in my life, I was away from Krishna consciousness, and I am doing my regular duties. We are doing like proper puja and harti and naivedyam every day, but not into Bhagavatam and like listening every day. Bhagavata Kada, association of devotees was not there. We're just doing in our own house and doing the festivals like in the place we lived in India, and teaching some Carnatic music. I'm teaching some slokas and kirtan songs for the kids on Zoom and in the temple. So that's life was going on like once a week in the temple. So this made me like a change everything, like once every day, morning, evening, I'm listening, and it was so much pleasure, Mataji, as you said, like Srila Prabhupada ki jai. That's what I wanted to share today.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. I want to just ask Bhagavati Harini Devi a question. You said your husband is forcing you to eat. Is he forcing you to eat, or just forcing you to cook with onion and garlic?
Both, Mataji.
I see. There's no opportunity to cook a little portion separately without for yourself, and then add the onion and garlic to his portion.
Yes, Mataji, I can do.
Okay. Anyways, we'll pray for you, and again, it's a good lesson for others. By your example, what's happened to you. It's a good lesson to think, carefully before. But, there's been miracles. Srila Prabhupada's sister Pishima had a husband who was a fish eater, and he expected she had to cook this for him. Of course, she didn't eat it herself. But in the end, he also became a devotee by her association, by the association of his wife, and by her example. He also ended up becoming a devotee. So let's hope you have the same result in your life.
The nice solution, Mataji. Krishna came in your form. Yeah.
Thank you,
Krishna gave
Prabhu.
answer.
Very beautiful answer, and there is a lot of hope for her. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. I see one more hand, and then I have to go. So Babu Gopal. Babu.
Babu Gopal Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, it's a pleasure Please accept my humble obeisances at your lotus
Why
feet.
don't you tilt your screen so we can actually see your whole face instead of the ceiling?
Yeah, you can see now.
Sort of. Yeah, now we see you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Today is auspicious day of his Vyas Puja of His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj.
Today
We
is Maharaj's Vyas Puja?
Yes, Mataji.
Oh.
And 2 weeks ago, we were in Vancouver, and somebody asked a question to Guru Maharaj, like, why at this age, in his present health condition, he keeps going. Actually, he didn't reply that he glorified you. He said, look at my god sister, in spite of her health condition, she keeps going. And my question to you, Mataji, is what keeps you going in spite of all the challenges, health conditions? What keeps you going, Mataji?
Remembrance of Srila Prabhupada. Because Srila Prabhupada, to use your expression, he kept going. You'll have seen most likely those videos where he is on his deathbed. He can no longer eat. He cannot lift his hand, lift his head. Everything is done for him. He's still translating. They're putting the microphone by his mouth, and he's still speaking the beautiful purports of the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. If Srila Prabhupada, why was he doing that? He was a liberated soul. He didn't need to do anything else. It was his love, his mercy, his compassion for all of us and those persons to come into future. So considering what he put into these beautiful Bhagavatams, the least we can do is assist him, first by reading them, and secondly, by distributing to others and giving others the mercy in the form of the Bhagavatam.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Okay, so.
Thank you, Prabhu, for the beautiful class. Beautiful
Thank you. Such amazing class and so beautiful and practical answers that we can, go ahead with our Krishna conscious life. So beautiful. Thank you so much. That's what the senior devotees are for. Your experience is what pushes us ahead and what, helps us to cross the problems that we get in our spiritual life. So thank you so much for your time, Prabhu, and thank you for your enlightening class. And we look forward for your association again in the future. Dear devotees, let us pay our obeisances. Vancha
Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Mantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki Srila Prabhupada ki
Malati Mataji
phone number, but
Koti
Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Raj, I want to give a message to Raj that you sent your phone number, but I have no way to write it down. So maybe you can just send it to my WhatsApp.
Yes, Prabhu, I will send it to the WhatsApp. We'll take the number